Hey everybody, World Chess Championship hype, 10 a.m. hype, and most importantly, coffee. Hope everybody's doing well, better than Ding. I just got a text. One of the players on the Atlanta Braves, um, I play chess with on chess.com, but can't tell you who he is. But anyway, he said the Braves are changing their name officially to Ding. So that's too bad. The Atlanta Ding. Oh, snap. They asked Ding at the press conference what he thought of the game and how he was feeling, and he said, dang. So that's too bad. And so forth. I just drink my coffee black like my heart. Not only did Ding not play very well, Jan played great. Damn. Jan played a lot of really strong moves. Let's see. How do I flip the board when it's in this mode? Let's see. Will this do it? It's not going to do it. I don't think the board can be flipped. I mean, obviously it can. I just don't know how. If I'm in regular mode, I can flip the board, but Chess.com events mode. Let's see. There we go. I found the arrows. And so forth. A dingo HL baby. That's right. Man, quadruple with the 45-year-old commercial. God damn. Or it's from Airplane. Either one. Yeah, I don't put anything in my coffee. That's the way I likes it. Yummy. Okay, let's get to the game. And then at 6 o'clock tonight, which is in 8 hours, I'll be having my second lecture on Morphe. And then I'll probably stream afterwards, like 7:30 or so. Just a regular stream. Okay, so as everybody knows already, they got this position where white always plays knight to c3. And then in the super GM world nowadays, black plays bishop to b4 and gets a Rogozin type of position. But he played the move h3, which I've never seen before. I looked at my database, and there's like 6 games, and the players are not good. They're not GMs or even IMs or even FMs or even 2300. And the idea is if black plays bishop b4 check, which is still viable, white's not going to pin his knight. White would play bishop to d2 in that position. Unless he wants to play knight to d2, but I would assume bishop d2. And otherwise, if black plays something like bishop e7, which is perfectly fine, then white will play knight c3, and bishop b4 loses a tempo, although that's the tempo, so I don't know. Not a fan of that move. Bad prep by Ding and his team, because I don't see any advantage of this move. And I see some disadvantages, like black can play actively in the center, which is what Jan did. The 2 moves that come to mind are taking on c4 or c5, saying this is a waste of time, and now I have the white pieces, which I agree with. Okay, so Jan played d takes c4. So we basically have a queen's gambit accepted with white playing h3. And I'll even show you what I mean. So queen's gambit accepted. knight f3, knight f6, h3. What? And then, e6 is one of the top moves. E6 is good in the Queen's Gambit accepted. Play c5 next. So, yeah. That's what happened. Okay, let me get my red board back. Yasser Serouan style, confusing the audience. Okay. And then I'll flip the board again, and we're back here. Okay, so Ding played e3, and now Jan could have gone full crazy mode if he wanted to and play b5 and try to hang on to the pawn and make it a pawn sacrifice. And that doesn't work because after a4, c6, we can play b3 at some point, probably right away. But b5 probably is close to equal. But if b5 doesn't hold the pawn and we just do a lot of trades on the queen side, that's probably not what Jan wants. Jan wants to play more enterprising because that's his style. And he likes to punish, innocuous moves. And sometimes he goes too far. So he just played c5. And it's just a QGA with the move h3. And when I say with the move h3, I don't mean it's an extra move. I mean white is playing a QGA and then for no reason playing the move h3. So what Jan did makes h3 look sort of silly because you wouldn't play h3 before castling and knight c3 and whatever line of the QGA you're playing with white. You don't play h3 in the first 10 moves because it's pointless. The pawn on e6 blocks the bishop, and black wouldn't do that anyway. Okay, so I've had white in this position many times, except my pawn's here, and I've castled or played knight c3. Usually castles. Yeah, if I put this move back in castle, I've had that position many times. Thousands of Grandmaster games. Okay, he played a6. White can choose to ignore a6, which is what he did, or he can play a4 or bishop d3. And I've played a4 and bishop d3. But he played castles. So knight c6 was played. He could have played b5. Again, white could play a4 if he doesn't like b5. But he played knight c3, so b5 happened. A lot of times when they play b5, they play knight b d7, so their bishop can go to b7 and not have anything blocking it. And also, often we're worried about d5. So if our knight's on c6, d5 gains a tempo. Okay, but here we're attacking the bishop. We don't want to lose our bishop. So he played bishop to d3. This has a nice trick that if black keeps taking on d4 a million times, then bishop takes b5 check wins his queen, which you can see. And then this is check, and your queen's hanging. That's a trick he's not going to fall into. I wish when I did analysis, it wouldn't change the color of the board, which shows that it's analysis. I want to keep the red part of the board. So, I don't know. I'll just keep doing this like Yasser. I mean, if I imitate Yasser, then I should be able to do it. Okay. So, when white plays bishop d3, he's signaling he's not trying to play d5. If he wanted to play d5, he'd play bishop b3, and then I don't know what he would do after c4 or b4. I don't know what his move would be. c4, he would go here. b4, he can't play knight e4 because it's not defended. After bishop d3, if black decides at some point in the next few moves to play b4, white could play knight a4, or white could play knight e4. And that actually did happen. Okay, so bishop b7. And again, typically in this position, this pawn would be here, and white would have already played queen e2. So he could play like takes in e4, or he could play rook to d1. But okay, here he can't do any of that. He played a4, following my rule when there's a pawn on b5, always play a4, which basically forces black to play b4. Thanks, Rage Mage 02002. And he played b4 and knight e4. Okay, now this is one of the most interesting strategical parts of the game. It looks like white's down a tempo from normal play because he played h3, which doesn't do anything. And, that shouldn't matter much. He's white. And in this position, Jan made a really nice move showing his familiarity with these structures. Because I think typically this knight would be on d7, and then white wouldn't be able to play knight e4 because it wouldn't be sufficiently defended. So he gets the extra knight here move because the knight's here. And the knight here puts pressure on d4, but as we saw earlier, you can't take on d4 because you lose your queen if you keep taking. So Jan played the move knight a5. Now this attacks the knight by discovery, and it helps black play c4 because the knight's defending c4. And if I was playing a blitz game or a slow game, I would definitely play knight takes c5 because I like the two bishops. Now, in the long run, it doesn't win a pawn, but it does stop black from getting all the play that he got. And I think this is the first position that Ding misevaluated. Knight c5, I think, is clearly the best move. Then we take with the bishop, we take with the pawn. White's going to lose his pawn, either by the rook taking it or the queen taking it or a knight taking it. And this bishop isn't very good on c1. It's hard to play e4, and the engine says it's about equal, but white's not worse. And so I don't want to say his move is incomprehensible. It's just I would have played knight takes c5 because I like the two bishops, and it seems as if the knight's not on d7 defending the c pawn. You should take the c pawn. So doesn't mean white's getting an advantage, but the engine does slightly prefer white after knight c5. Okay, he took on f6, and perhaps, although I doubt it, perhaps he was surprised that black played gf, which is the correct move, because we want to stop the knight from coming here. And since our bishop is on b7, I call that the Anand bishop, based on Anand's win in the last game of his World Championship match against Topalov, which I think was in a Tartakower, or no, it was in a Lasker QGD. Black's going to play rook here, maybe he'll play queen here, and so forth. And you might say, where is the king going? The answer will surprise you, but the king's perfectly safe in the center since we have these three center pawns, and the center's sort of blocked. There's no open lines here to the king. And I have a bishop in front of my king if I want. My queen is here. My pawns are here. And the pawn on f6 stops the white knight from coming in. And white is stopping his own bishop from coming in. So, black's fine. Okay. And after knight takes, g takes, the engine slightly prefers black. Okay. So he played e4. Because he wants to get his bishop out, and he wants to thwart the bishop on b7 from attacking on this diagonal. And he played c4. Of course, he could take this pawn, but again, I could just take with the knight because of the same queen takes bishop b5 check trick that we just saw. This pawn's actually defended. So white's going to play either d5 or bishop e3 next move. So he played c4. And it's a battle of the center versus the advanced queenside pawns. But this is actually good for stopping white center. There's a lot of pawns here that stop white center from going forward. And this is already on the 5th rank, and this is only the 4th rank. Okay, he played bishop c2. He actually doesn't mind black playing b3, bishop b1, because then the pawns aren't mobile anymore. They can't move anywhere. And I could play bishop d2 to c3. Eventually, I'll play e5, and my bishop on b1 can get out later. But But you could play b3. There's nothing wrong with it. But he played queen c7 for three reasons. One is he stops bishop f4, so the bishop can't go to an active square. He defends his c pawn again, so he's ready to advance. And strangely for some of you, he wants to castle queenside. And he feels his king is safe. And this pawn structure should remind you of the Botvinnik semi-Slav, where the pawns are up here and black's castling queenside and has a bishop on b7. It's typical kind of position in that variation. Okay, so black is better here because black has control of most of the board. He has a big advance on the queen side. He has a really nice bishop on the diagonal. He's got an open file for his rook. And these pawns are giving him the advantage. He's taking all these squares away from white's pieces. Okay, bishop d2. Not the engine move. I think the engine wants to play bishop e3. Bishop d2 seems sort of passive. And he played rook g8, showing that he's not going to castle kingside. Rook c1. So he wants to play bishop b1 and get his rook, on this open file. Black castled. And this position, from basically here to the end, Ding did not play well. And these are Jan kinds of positions. Double-edged, opposite side castling, pawn structure asymmetrical, very confusing. And these are the kind of positions when a super grandmaster plays an engine, the engine just rolls over the super grandmaster because it's too complicated. And the engine can look 15, 20 moves ahead in every variation and plays accurately. And grandmasters are just guessing based on their skills, not necessarily calculating 15 moves ahead. So from here on to the end of the game, Ding makes a lot of subpar moves. So the engine wants him to play queen e1, which I guess attacks the b pawn and defends his pawn on e4. Queen e1's a weird move, but okay. The second engine move is king h1, just getting off of this diagonal. He played a very aggressive move, which backfired. He played bishop to d3. He's putting pressure on the pawn. It seems as though he wants to take the pawn and then play b3, getting his piece back. Okay, but this doesn't work. Jan Cooley plays king to b8. Okay, that's the best move. And once again, he plays quite a bad move. Now, if I was white, then I would be mainly looking at bishop takes c4, knight takes c4, b3. In fact, I'm looking at it now. And it seems like the reason that's bad is the knight just keeps taking things. I can play knight takes bishop, you play rook takes queen, I play knight takes knight check, and then I take your rook, and I'll have a rook and two bishops for a queen, which should be winning for black, I would guess. Anyway, let's see if the engine agrees with me, or if I'm crazy. That was non-engine analysis, so it could be bad. Okay, the engine doesn't play knight takes d2. It says either knight b2 or bishop takes e4 is winning for black. Okay. That's bishop takes e4. This is really nasty here. Recommended by Janet Jackson. Let's see my variation, what the engine says. The engine says this is all zeros. I wasn't expecting all zeros. I was expecting somebody to be much better. Queen takes is the only move. And somehow this is all zeros. Okay, like in a blitz game, I'd probably take white. In a slow game, I'd probably take black. Okay. Let's get back to where we once belong. Okay. And then we'll flip the board. All right. So king b8, he didn't take this. That's actually a bad move. He played another bad move. He played rook e1. And rook e1 doesn't really go with bishop d3. And I guess the only reason you would do that is to always play bishop f1. But I mean, to play bishop takes c4, bishop d3, bishop c2, bishop d3, bishop f1, that's a lot of bishop moves while black is playing actively. And in this particular game, Jan made quite a lot of really strong moves, like King B8, like his next move F5, trying to open up this diagonal here for the king. And in this position, White played a move that is recommended by the engine, and it's not a move I would have considered, I don't think. I'm very confused. I guess if I take on F5, you could take on F3 and take on D4, and my bishops are all hanging. That seems annoying. It seems like Black's winning there. Because the bishops are all hanging. So, okay, then the next move makes some sense. He played bishop C2. Doesn't seem like you should play bishop D3 if your next move is bishop C2. Then in this variation where I take and take this and take on D4, my rook's not attacking both of your bishops. But yeah, bishop C2 leaves looks not good. Okay, now his knight has done a lot on A5, defending and preventing stuff. So he went back to C6, attacking the pawn on D4. Bishop G5, which defends the pawn and attacks the rook. Always sack the exchange. Pretty easy exchange sacrifice. Knight takes D4 because it undefends the D pawn. And now White's position doesn't make any sense. White's rooks aren't any good. The knight on D4 is a monster. And it's funny, I got an email from FIDE with an explanation of the game. And it said, Ding was forced to give up a rook for a bishop and 2 pawns. That's a funny way to say that Black sacked the exchange. Yeah, White's position doesn't make a lot of sense here. Okay, so the problem with moving this knight ever, which happened, is I can take this bishop and then play bishop takes e4. But if the knight's on g5, then that's okay. But okay, the knight can't stay on g5. So, okay, he played queen h5, attacking the pawn on f7. And I guess also attacking this useless pawn, but all right. See, White played h3. If only Black had played h6 earlier, none of this would have happened. Okay, so he played f6, never play f6. And here, Ding made another mistake. Ding has to play knight takes h7. And the engine says after bishop c5, Black is completely winning. But that's better than what he did. Now, one of the reasons Ding played this part of the game badly is he's in bad form. And he was in time trouble. So you can see the clock times here. Ding is, almost half an hour behind on the clock. And there's still 18 moves to go, and he has less than 18 minutes. And this is a difficult position to navigate. The engine already says Black's winning. Black has these pawns, this amazing knight, this amazing bishop, all these pawns here, and White's position just doesn't make any sense. Okay, he has to save his knight. He should play knight takes h7, but he played knight f3, always retreat. Knight takes c2, as I indicated, would be the response to that, and bishop takes e4. And okay, this is just hopeless. This is the bishop and 2 pawns for a rook they were talking about. Okay, the rook's hanging, so we have to move our rook. Played rook to d2. Bishop to d6, doesn't want to trade. Finally gets his bishop out, and now he's ready to promote his pawn. King h1, put it in h. So Black was threatening bishop takes f3, which removes the guard on the rook, and then bishop h2 check, and then take the rook. So if it was Black's turn to play, this move would win a rook. Bishop takes f3. So he played king h1. That way bishop h2 isn't check. c3. After c3, obviously Ding was PO'd because he played r2 to d2. Okay. It didn't pause. I was just staring at the camera. Okay. And the force will be with him and the forks. They traded Rengao 87's rating with a party of 11. Hooray. Okay. So the rook has to move its attack. So he moved it. Then c2. And he's got to stop c1 queen. So he played queen h6. Stopping the move pawn from queening. e5. And e5 is a funny move to end the game because the rook is trapped. The only safe square where you don't sacrifice your rook is rook d2, and that blocks the queen. So if you play rook d2, I can promote my pawn to a queen. If you don't play rook d2, I'll take it. So you have to sack and exchange one way or the other. Then you're down 2 pawns. The bishop on e4 is a monster, and this pawn's going to queen soon. So the engine says black is plus 10, and also Ding had less than a minute. So he lost 6 ways from Sunday. Yes, that's true. He probably did whisper that. So this was only 29 moves. And not only did Ding play sort of wishy-washy, not very good, Jan played super accurate and went through the complications and still had half an hour on the clock. I mean, he played sort of fast and very aggressive. He took the play to Ding, and Ding couldn't handle the truth. So Ding hasn't played super well the first 2 games, but it's a 14-game match. Things can turn around easy. And, I think if Ding had won like this, Jan would be in a bad mental state. Although Ding has claimed he's in a bad mental state to start the match, which I'm not sure what that's about. So Ding seems unhappy about something, and he's going to be more unhappy now. But it's just one game. The next game isn't necessarily related, and they also have a rest day tomorrow. There's no game on Tuesday, I should say. Today's Monday. There's no game Tuesday, so if you wake up at 5 a.m. Eastern, you're going to be disappointed because they play 2 games and they have a rest day. So hopefully on the rest day, Ding can get his thoughts together and play better chess and so forth. All hail our next world champion, Jan Nepomniachtchi. All right. And so forth. Anyway, I thought that was quite a good game, especially from Jan. Ding made 3 or 4 moves that weren't so good. And let me do a chess.com game review. It says black played 96.9. It's pretty good. And that white played 85.2. 96.9 is pretty good for a world championship match. There's a lot of pressure, and your opponent's pretty good. And also 9669 is my birthday, so I like 96.9. Radio station's not bad. Okay, so I'll see you guys tonight about 7:30 for my next stream. That won't be related to the World Championship. And then I'll see some of you at 6 o'clock tonight for Paul Morphy Part 2. I hope you enjoyed the recap, etc. Mainly, etc. All right, let's see. Who are we going to raid? Let's see. I don't know. I guess we'll raid you. Gotta raid somebody. It's not popping up for some reason. All right, I'll see you guys tonight. Bye, everybody.